Dear Mark, by the time you're reading this, I'll already be gone. Yeah, I know leaving a breakup letter like this is straight up dramatic and maybe even childish, but I also know exactly how it would go if I tried to do this face to face. There'd be a meltdown, questions I can't answer, tears I can't handle, and I just can't. I don't have the strength to sit there and watch the pain crash over your face. Call me a coward if you want, I probably deserve it, but I just couldn't stand the idea of hurting you while looking you in the eye. The truth? I'm bored. Utterly, heartbreakingly bored. Bored of living the same way for the past 28 years plus those 4 years of college dating. I'm sick of knowing exactly how every day with you will go. I'm tired of you reading my mind before I've even figured out what I want. I used to find it sweet the way you'd finish my sentences or rub my neck or legs in that exact perfect way without needing me to ask. But now it just feels like I don't even own my thoughts anymore. I've started to feel like I'm disappearing, and it terrifies me. And yes, I'm tired of our sex life. I know that's probably the line that'll hit you hardest. I know it sounds unfair after all. I was the one who said no most of the time. I made you wait. I needed to be in the mood, which often took days. But you have to understand something. Knowing you wanted me, that was a turn on. Holding back, playing on the edge of intimacy for a few days before finally giving in. That made me feel powerful, alive. But still, when the moment came, it was too safe, too polite, too expected. You wanted to be bolder, kinkier maybe, but I just couldn't go there with you. You were the father of my children, Mark. You were supposed to be solid, grounded, predictable, not wild, not dirty. That's why I never gave you what you wanted in Bediven, though. God knows. You gave me everything I asked for. You were generous, attentive, passionate. And yes, that makes me a hypocrite. I know how selfish this all sounds. That's because it is selfish. And that's why I'm leaving. I need the chase again. The electricity. The newness of a stranger's hands. The kind of excitement you just can't recreate with someone who knows the exact rhythm of your breathing. You used to be electric, Mark. I remember you on stage with Danny and the guys, strumming that guitar, hair flying, sweat shining on your arms. I remember you riding that Harley with reckless confidence, that black leather jacket clinging to your body like it was made for you. You danced like no one else, whether it was a smoky rock club or a formal ballroom. You made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. You used to paint these beautiful pictures of our life, of us, the kids, the future. But then we got older, got comfortable. The concert stopped so you could coach Ben's football team. The Harley got parked under a pile of forgotten sports equipment. The leather jacket disappeared under your dad clothes. And now there's a minivan in the driveway. Your hair? Still gorgeous. I'll give you that. But the life we built? I don't fit in it anymore. The kids are grown. The routine is cemented. And you somehow seem happy in this slow domestic rhythm. I'm not. I'm not built for it anymore. No, I haven't cheated on you. You're still the only man I've ever been with. But lately, other men have caught my attention. I haven't done anything. Not yet. And that's exactly why I'm leaving now. I couldn't bear to betray you behind your back. I loved you too much to lie to you like that. I asked Victor to handle the divorce. He's already filed everything. You get the house, the car, the furniture, everything, really. I only took my clothes and personal stuff. Just the things I needed. I even left you half my pension. And I'm taking responsibility for half our shared debts minus the mortgage, of course. It's only fair. Fairness is the least I can give you. Clara, I even left you half my pension and took on half of our shared debt excluding the mortgage. It's only fair, and I want to be at least that. Please, if you must cry, do it in private. I'm asking this not out of cruelty, but so that when we inevitably see each other at the kids' events, we won't cause a scene. But if you feel the need to respond, write me a letter. I promise I'll read every single word. I'll value your final thoughts. Love, Clara. I must have read that damn letter 10 times, maybe more. I just stood there, barefoot in the kitchen, stuck in place like someone had poured concrete around my legs. No tears. Not yet, just a hollow thud inside my chest, like my heart had unplugged itself. There was nothing leading up to this. No signs, no slow fade, no "we need to talk" energy in the air. She didn't act distant. No bitterness, no complaints, no silent wars in bed. We kissed. We touched. We laughed at inside jokes. We shared little gestures that only couples growing old together build over decades. Hell, I had spent the last year trying to romance her again. Our youngest had finally moved out after graduating college, and I saw it as a second chance. I bought her jewelry. She said it was too expensive. Said she'd rather have chocolate, so I started buying chocolate. I let her call the shots in bed. She said I was stressing her out by initiating sex too often, so I backed off completely. She said holding hands helped, so I held her damn hand every chance I got. Looking back, maybe that was her clue. Maybe she was warning me in her own way. But I didn't get it. I just thought she was adjusting to empty nest life, or maybe going through a phase. Turns out, I was the last one to know the phase was leaving your husband. So what did I do? I grabbed a beer, then I went to the shower. At the same time, I stood in the shower with a beer in hand like some washed-up rock star in a midlife crisis. Finished that one. Got 2 more. Went back to the shower. No one around to care that I was soaking the damn floor. I had every intention of finishing off the wine in the cellar too, and I did. I made a pretty serious dent in all of it. The next morning, I woke up on the cold basement floor, naked, soaked, and hungover, so bad I thought my skull had cracked open. Dragged myself upstairs, threw up everything I hadn't eaten, collapsed into bed and cried like a kid. I was 11 when my grandmother passed. At her funeral, my grandfather sat me down and gave me a lesson I never forgot. You get 3 days to mourn someone, Mark. 3. God brought back the dead in 3 days. So cry, scream, break shit, drink if you have to, brawl if you must, pray hard. Feel it all. But on day 4, you get your ass up and live again. You honor the dead by living. You don't build a shrine to your pain. He was right. Wise as hell. But first, I had to break. Clara's decision wrecked me. I cried my soul out, got drunk to the point of forgetting my name. I punched holes in the walls until my knuckles bled, then switched to furniture when drywall wasn't enough. I screamed until I lost my voice, kicked anything that didn't move. Didn't eat except for the liquid bread known as beer. Yeast, grain, water, basically a sandwich, right? Wine is fruit. That counts too. It was summer. She waited till the school year ended to drop the bomb. Strategic. By Tuesday, 4 days after her letter, I woke up. The official end of mourning, by Grandpa's rules. First thing I did, call the kids. Clara had already told them, and they tried reaching me all weekend. I'd ignored their calls while drowning in booze. When I finally picked up, I just told them, I'm okay. I'll be okay. And I meant it mostly. Then I picked up the phone and called my favorite local charity. Told them to send a truck. I had a house full of memories I was ready to burn. I kept what mattered. A few pieces of family furniture, the photo albums, the framed pictures of the kids growing up. I boxed them all and told the kids they could take whatever they wanted. As for the rest, every single souvenir Clara dragged home over the years that I never gave a damn about gone. Why the hell should I care about her precious Spanish pottery? Or those ridiculous copper cat figurines we bought in Portugal that I always thought were hideous? Tossed. All of it. Over the next few days, I made Home Depot my second home. Flooring, paint, carpet, drywall, I loaded up on everything I needed to reclaim this house. This wasn't going to be our home anymore. This was going to be mine. Goodbye, coral walls. Goodbye, frilly curtains. Goodbye, lacy little details that screamed, married life with Clara. I stopped by Victor's office and signed the divorce papers. Since Clara hadn't contested anything and only one lawyer was involved, He told me it'd all be finalized around the time school started back up. That felt weird, but freeing. Next, I sold the damn minivan, drove it to some sketchy little back alley dealer downtown, and left with something I'd dreamed of for years, a 1976 Triumph Spitfire convertible, British racing green, beige leather interior, chrome alloy wheels, a middle-aged man's fantasy, parked right in my driveway. Then I did what I probably should have done the day Clara left unpacked the Harley. Turns out, once I cleared the junk out of the garage, she was easy to access. Still beautiful, still mine. But the smartest thing I did, I called Danny. That single call changed my life just as fast as Clara's letter had wrecked it. 30 minutes later, Danny and the rest of the guys were knocking on my door. Danny's been my best friend since 3rd grade. We started our garage band together, played pickup basketball, survived middle school, crashed parties, shared cheap beer in college. He was my best man. I was his. When he heard about the divorce, he showed up like it was an emergency, because to him, it was. We'd stopped playing music years ago. Jobs, kids, marriage, real life got in the way. But our old crew, they hadn't forgotten us. Neither had our fans. Seeing Danny and the boys on my porch was like flipping a switch. A lot of familiar faces. A lot of long hugs and laughs that turned into plans. We played weddings, parties, even street fairs back in the day. Half the time we didn't charge anything, we just loved the thrill, the music, the women who came just to hear us and hang out. And now, word got around fast. Mark trashed his house. He's turning it into a bachelor pad. What followed was a flood of support. Over the next 2 weeks, my house turned into a hive of hammers and laughter. Painters, carpenters, drywall guys, masons, electricians, plumbers, you name it. They fixed way more than just my walls. By the time they were done, my home was unrecognizable. And then came the women. Funny thing about a group of guys showing up to help out, they bring wives and girlfriends. And those wives and girlfriends, they bring single friends. Suddenly, my love life was starting to get interesting. No one pushed anything, not yet. It was too soon for that. But the energy was there, the vibe, the curiosity, and the flirting. The parties started almost immediately. Impromptu barbecues, jam sessions, beers on the deck, people dropping by just because it was the place to be. And even though I wasn't looking to jump into a new relationship, at least not until the divorce was finalized, I needed time to breathe, to find myself again without dragging someone else into the fog. Danny had other plans. "Man, screw sitting around," he said. "Let's bring the band back." Turns out, he'd already been testing the waters, booking low-key gigs at clubs run by old friends. Before the fresh paint in my house had even dried, Danny and Mark made their comeback at Jimmy's, a gritty little bar we used to love. We started taking over Friday nights there. By the following weekend, he had us locked in for Saturdays at a local dance club downtown and Sundays at a waterfront seafood joint that hosted live music. And the craziest thing, we sounded like we'd never stopped playing. It was like our guitars had just been waiting for us to remember who we were. We were all in the same boat, kids out of the house, relationships shaken or shattered, gray hairs creeping in, except for Leon, our drummer. He gave up and shaved it all off. But somehow, we still looked good. We still had rhythm. Our fans came crawling out of hibernation. People we hadn't seen in decades showed up, clapping, dancing, shouting our names like we were still 25. Even my sons, Ben and Alex, started coming around more. They helped with home repairs, joined the crowd at a few shows, even helped run sound once or twice. I made it very clear to them no information was to be passed to their mother. If Clara asked, they were to be honest. Dad was devastated, but he's moving on. He's doing fine. No details. Sophia, my daughter living in Australia, got the same memo. She agreed without argument. My kids had always been good to me, smart, mature, and respectful, and I trusted them completely. I knew Clara was in the dark because nothing got back to me through the grapevine. No weird texts, no sudden visits, just silence, which was exactly what I needed. I also fought loneliness in my own way by doubling down on healthy habits. I started eating better, focused on whole foods, clean cooking, no more stress snacking at midnight. I'd always stayed in decent shape, but now I got serious. I swam laps every morning, ran or biked every evening. Even before gigs, I got in my workout. I rebuilt everything: my house, my body, my reputation, my connection with the kids. Within a month of Clara leaving, I had recreated a version of myself I hadn't seen since I was young and fearless. And then one night, it hit me. I still owed her a reply. She asked for a letter, didn't she? So I wrote one. Dear Clara, thank you. You were right. Goodbye, Mark. I emailed it. No drama, no poetry, just the truth. I didn't have her new address, and honestly, I didn't need it. Later, someone tried to tell me Clara had taken up with some younger guy, smooth, well-dressed, around Sophia's age, drove a luxury car, always ready with a clever line. Apparently, they'd been spotted together on the beach, at clubs, walking along the shoreline like something out of a movie. Every time someone brought it up, I just smiled politely and said, I'd rather not know. But people talk. And eventually, all those little whispers started forming a picture. It looked like Clara had jumped straight into a textbook case of a September-June romance, possibly October or November, depending on who you asked. But it didn't matter. I truly, genuinely wished her well. Grandpa's 3-day mourning rule saved me. And to be honest, I liked who I was becoming too much to go backward. August is always bittersweet for teachers. It marks the end of summer, the slow march back into structure. But for musicians, August is a goldmine. Danny and I booked festival after festival. We played 2, sometimes 3 sets a day, hopping from stage to stage, living like we were 20 again. I was so busy, so alive, that I never even got around to reading her email response. Not because I was trying to be cold. I just assumed we'd said all that needed saying. She wanted distance. She got it. I was simply too busy and having way too much fun to bother checking my email. Honestly, I'd nearly forgotten the mess of my divorce altogether when Victor gave me a call. Mark, he said, your case is moving along faster than expected. Turns out someone on the judge's staff is a fan of your band. Figures. That Friday, just a month and a half after my life blew up, I was officially set to become a free man again. We were booked to play at a big street fair and arts festival in town. The weather was perfect, the crowd was hot, and let's just say the skirts were short and necklines daring. Suddenly, every beautiful woman out there looked like a possibility. When we hit the stage, people started flooding the streets. We cranked the amps and ripped into our blues-heavy set like we were headlining Coachella. Covers, originals, improv jams, pure, sweaty, electric magic. It felt incredible. The guys had even dug up our old master tapes recordings we'd never released back in the day because, well, diapers and mortgages got in the way. But now we had enough to slap together a couple of DIY albums. We mixed the old tracks with new ones, burned CDs. Way easier than pressing vinyl these days. And people were actually buying them. A lot of people. I got looks that night, real looks. From women of all ages, curious eyes, flirty smiles, subtle invitations. It was like the sexual drought had ended and the rain was pouring. I didn't see Clara in the crowd. Didn't see her try to get backstage. Didn't see her run toward me. What I did see was Riley. 30, stacked, blonde, full of fire. She swung her leg over the back of my Harley like she belonged there, and I didn't even register. The shift just smiled and rode off into the night. Later, I found out Clara had seen the whole thing. She had tried to reach me. She'd run toward the bike. And the moment she saw Riley wrap her arms around me, her spot taken for the first time in 25 years, something in her cracked. I didn't see her face fall, didn't notice the tears, but I wish I had. Riley, she was a hurricane. I won't go into graphic detail about how she worked her magic, but let's just say the drought ended with thunder. We tore through the night like teenagers in heat. By the time we were done, I could barely stand. She looked at me, kissed me on the cheek, and said with a grin, "I'll never forget this, but let's not do it again, okay?" She probably needed a week to walk straight again in time to figure out what the hell she was thinking. But Clara, she wasn't going to stay invisible forever. Sure enough, the next time I saw her was at our usual Friday night gig at Jimmy's Crib. She walked in like a ghost from a different life. Only this time, she had her boy toy in tow. Some pretty young guy and another couple were with them. They grabbed a table, ordered beers, and settled in like it was just another night. As soon as I spotted her, I looked at Danny and gave him the signal. Time to go off script. See, we had a tradition. Whenever one of us spotted an ex in the crowd, especially one who did us dirty the band, dropped the planned set list. The heartbroken guy took the mic, and we played American, our not-so-subtle anthem of heartbreak and resilience. We never dated each other's exes, never crossed that line. If one of us was burned, she was off limits for all of us. Period. Brotherhood rules. So when I stepped up to the mic, the air changed. I couldn't picture myself bringing a new woman into my home, only to introduce her to Clara, lounging on the couch with a blanket, watching sitcom reruns, and eating ice cream straight out of the tub with gummy bears on top. No way. I didn't like being single when I was young, and I had zero intention of revisiting that chaos now. As the weeks turned into months, the kids started softening. They asked me gently, and with carefully chosen words, if I could help their mom out a little. I agreed, in my own limited way. I let them go through the storage unit I'd rented. There was furniture in there that was too good to throw away, but too filled with memories for me to keep. When Clara finally found herself a small apartment, I even loaned them the band's truck to help her move. Yes, that truck, the one we used to haul amps and drum kits to gigs. I didn't see her much after that. School was back in session. Our band calendar was packed, and even though she taught in the same district, it was a different school. Our paths crossed occasionally, but when they did, I barely noticed. Word was, I'd become quite the topic of hallway chatter. Maybe it was the Harley rumbling through the faculty lot. Maybe it was the Triumph parked in the front row. Or maybe it was just my new energy, me, unapologetic attitude, my reawakened love of music, or the fact that I always seemed to be in a good mood. Whatever it was, rumors swirled. I didn't care. I was living. Really living. The band was more popular than ever. My backyard barbecues were low-key legendary. And my social life? Let's just say, I was never short on female company. I was happy, truly. Then Thanksgiving rolled around. I took a long overdue trip to Francia, personal bucket list item. I wanted to be in Burgundy the day Beaujolais Nouveau was released. As I packed the night before the flight, Ben called. "Dad, are you coming to Mom's Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow?" I told him I'd already made plans. He was clearly disappointed. "Well, then promise me you'll be home for Christmas. All three of us are coming into town. Sophia and her fiancé from Australia, Alex and I from Boston. We're cooking. You just provide the house. Please, Dad, it's been too long." I paused. I missed them. I missed that. "All right," I said. "But one condition, your mother doesn't bring a date. I'm not spending Christmas watching some smug guy sit in my chair and pass the gravy." He laughed. "She's not dating anyone, Dad. Honestly, she's really lonely." I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to know more. I wasn't jealous. I just didn't want someone else pretending to belong at my family's table. "Everyone can stay at the house," I told him. "All of you. Just not her. She can visit, but she doesn't get to move back in like nothing happened." Ben hesitated. "Dad, it'll break her heart if we're all sleeping here, and she has to leave when it's over." I looked around the quiet house. He was right. It would be the first time we'd all be together under one roof since they moved out. Clara belonged here, too, even if not in the same way she used to. Fine, I said. She can stay, but not in her old room. That's off limits. She sleeps in the guest room, and if anyone brings a partner, they either bunk with you or get a hotel. Thanks, Dad. It means a lot to us. Christmas that year landed on a Saturday. Everyone started arriving Thursday night. Sophia and her fiancé flew in from Australia. Ben and Alex picked them up from the airport on their way in from Boston. And Clara? She pulled into the driveway about 10 minutes before them, and I watched her through the window as she sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel like it was anchoring her to the earth. She looked nervous, staring straight ahead, lost in thought, maybe rehearsing how to smile, how to act normal, how not to let the weight of everything that happened sink the moment. Then the kids pulled up. It was like flipping a switch. They all tumbled out of cars, voices loud with excitement, arms flung wide open. They laughed, hugged, kissed each other in the front yard like they hadn't seen each other in years, which, honestly, they hadn't. For the first time since I pulled myself out of that miserable 3-day hole, I felt a real twinge of regret. Not regret about letting go, not regret about healing, just about how far we drifted before we noticed the damage, about how much water had rushed under our bridge before we even realized it had started to collapse. When they walked through the front door, what they found wasn't the house they remembered. It was warm, inviting, but different. Neither Clara nor Sophia had seen the place since I'd remodeled, so their reactions were almost comical familiar awe mixed with confusion. Still, I had kept the traditions alive. The Christmas decorations were all in their usual places, the garlands, the nutcrackers, the bowls of candy. Sure, they now sat on modern furniture, surrounded by sleek hardwood floors and clean lines, but the spirit? That part remained untouched. The tree stood tall in the center of the living room, decked out in the same mismatched ornaments we'd bought from Christmas markets over the years, some handmade, some laughably tacky, all full of stories. I'd added a fireplace during the remodel, and it burned brightly with a pine log, casting that nostalgic, golden glow that wraps around you like a familiar sweater. The house smelled like cinnamon, cider, and old memories. Every corner had a plate of cookies or fudge. The dining table was set with the same fine china Clara's grandmother had gifted us as a wedding present all those years ago. There was no doubt this was my home now, but there was also no doubt it was ready to host Christmas for my family. Yes, my family. Despite everything, despite the divorce, the distance, the damage, they were still my people. The kids, though grown, were still my babies. And Clara? She might not be my wife anymore, but she'd held the key to my heart for most of my adult life. They looked around, voices rising with excitement. I'd restored each of the kids' bedrooms to resemble their old layouts. Sophia's room still had that cozy charm, though I replaced the neon pink with soft pastel tones and upgraded her twin bed to a comfy double. The boys' rooms got similar treatment, more adult now, but still familiar. The guest room had been converted into a music studio drafting table by the window, racks for guitars, amps stacked neatly, a mixing console in the corner. I even tore out the wall of the old library and expanded it into a spacious media room with a big screen television and a pool table. And hanging from the mantel of the new fireplace, brand new stockings. One for everyone. Yes, even Clara. The kids noticed. They froze mid-laughter, exchanged that look, the one they used to give each other before jumping off the roof into the lake. A silent agreement. Then they rushed for the stockings in unison, whooping like they were 10 years old again. It was beautiful. In that instant, the years melted away. Gone were the jobs, bills, breakups, responsibilities. All that remained was the unfiltered joy of being together. Eventually, the older kids regained their composure and returned the partner stockings with a few mumbled, smiling stories of holidays past. Then came the ritual. We each added small, silly gifts into the stockings just as we always had. Little chocolates, handwritten jokes, scratch-offs, ridiculous socks that no one would wear past noon. Everyone was nibbling and laughing. Then Sophia looked up from her cocoa and said, "Dad, your stocking's empty." Ben chimed in. "Yeah, we didn't know if you were doing this again. We didn't bring anything." I reached up, took one of the stockings from the mantel, and peered inside. "No," I said softly, holding it up for them to see. "You did fill it. You're all here laughing, teasing each other, sneaking cookies, making fun of my socks. This is the real gift. This is what fills it." They smiled. I got a few hugs and warm Merry Christmas wishes, and even Clara lingered in our embrace a little longer than I expected from an ex-wife. But it didn't feel awkward. For a fleeting moment, we weren't ex-anything. We were just a family, whole again. The kids suddenly realized there were still presents under the tree, and in that instant, they regressed into excited little versions of themselves grabbing, shaking, guessing, laughing. We exchanged gifts. Everyone had brought something thoughtful, something silly, something that tugged the heart just enough. Dinner followed a feast, really. Roasted everything, homemade everything, everyone helping, even if only to taste test. After we cleared the dishes and packed away the leftovers, I brought out my guitar. Danny had dropped by earlier and left his. So we played. We sang carols, old standards, bluesy renditions. We even managed a group version of Feliz Navidad that would have made Jose Feliciano sigh. By the time the clock rolled past midnight, the kids started disappearing into their old bedrooms one by one. Clara stood at the hallway closet, reaching for her coat. "Thank you for today," she said, her voice low but steady. "You didn't have to include me. I know that. But it meant everything." I gave her a small nod. She hesitated, then added, "I know I should take the blame for all of it. And I do. Of all the things I've lost, what I miss most is this, family time." "The kids are grown now," I said. "Even if we were still married, this kind of night would still be rare." "I know," she said, her eyes glistening. "But I don't just miss them. I miss us, the way it felt when it was just the two of us, that kind of family time." She took a shaky breath. "I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm sorry. I wrecked a really good life, for both of us." I looked at her for a long second. "Don't beat yourself up," I said. "We always told the kids to follow their dreams, do what makes them happy. You did that, and we still have a good life, it's just a different shape now." She stared at me, her brows furrowed. "Is that all you feel? After today? No regret? No nostalgia? Do you ever mourn what we lost?" I sighed gently. "Clara, we had a great day. What exactly did we lose?" "We lost each other," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "I lost you, and I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for that." Tears spilled freely now. Her whole body shuddered as she broke down. I wrapped my arms around her without hesitation. She collapsed into me. I'd cried when she left, but back then, I cried for me. Now, on Christmas night, I cried because I saw how much she was hurting. When she finally calmed down, I reminded her of something she hadn't expected me to remember. "In college," I said, "you broke up with me. You said we were getting too serious, too fast, and needed space to figure out if one guy for the rest of your life was what you really wanted." Her lips parted, startled. I was devastated. "But I told you then I would never want to be with someone who wasn't completely sure they wanted to be with me." She nodded slowly. "I gave our marriage its 3-day mourning period," I continued. "And when I came out the other side, I decided to move forward with my life. Today, you were a beautiful part of that life again, and I'm grateful for it." My tone was calm, even. That seemed to ground her. I offered her to stay the night. Pulled out the bed in the studio. Gave her one of my old t-shirts and a robe so she could walk around the house without feeling awkward. After I locked up, I passed her room. She was crying again, quietly this time. I didn't think she'd get much sleep. But me? I slept like a rock. The next day, Christmas continued like it never ended. And Clara? She glowed when the kids begged her to stay for the whole weekend. We didn't bring up the past again while they were there, but I recognized the way Clara was looking at me, those same soft, lingering glances she used to give when we were still married. The "I still love you" smiles, the "I remember you" eyes. And to be honest, I responded. Not with words, but with looks of my own. Quiet, familiar ones. The kind that said, "Hug me," or "Can I kiss you?" We were back to finishing each other's sentences without even trying. At breakfast, she poured the coffee, and I instinctively added the perfect amount of milk. I was buttering my pancakes, and when I glanced over, she was topping hers with just the right drizzle of maple syrup, exactly how I'd have done it for her. It was uncanny, effortless, but we still slept in separate rooms. Eventually, the weekend came to an end. The kids packed up and left together. Sophia planned to spend some time with her brothers in Boston before heading to Vermont for a ski trip. And just like that, the house was quiet again. Just me and Clara. Alone. In the house we'd built together. I lit a fire in the living room. She opened a bottle of wine without asking. We sat, relaxed, talked, laughed, reminisced. And then, somewhere between stories and sips, the mood shifted. "I was so stupid," she whispered, her voice tight. "So wrong. So cruel." She set her glass down and looked straight into my eyes. "I know I can never make it up to you, and I'm not asking you to forgive me, but I just wanted to say I'm truly sorry. I want to be something, even if it's just friends again." I didn't interrupt. "You weren't just my husband," she said. "You were my best friend, my advisor, the one person I trusted more than anyone else, my partner in everything." She paused, breathing deep, trying not to break. "And I miss that. I miss you." I looked at her, gave her a slow, quiet smile. That was all it took. Clara unraveled like a flood breaking through a dam. She's always had a way with words, but this time, it wasn't poetess, it was raw, real, honest. She told me how she'd slowly grown bored, how routine had dried out the fire inside her, but now she understood that she was the one who shut the door between us. She admitted to craving the thrill of meeting someone new, the rush of secrecy, the intoxicating risk of it all. She confessed that it had been disturbingly easy to turn me into a villain in her head because that made her betrayal easier to justify. She painted her actions in betrayal and regret, and told me how she'd resented me for not fighting harder to keep her, for not chasing her when she walked out. But mostly, she talked about jealousy. Jealousy that I landed on my feet so quickly, that I reclaimed the very life I once had before we got married, the band, the bike, the women, the attention. She couldn't stand seeing me smiling, thriving, especially not with some 20-something blonde wrapped around me on the back of her Harley. Her jealousy turned to bitterness. But when the divorce was finalized, she crashed. That boy toy she left me for, he dumped her. Turns out, he had a pattern. He only dated married women. As soon as they became single and emotionally invested, he bailed. He didn't just walk out, used her. Turns out his father, an old-school conservative who loathed his son's habits, had disowned him. No more trust fund, no more support. So he survived by dating vulnerable, wealthy married women and living off whatever they'd offer him before he ditched them. Clara didn't realize she was just the next in line. And after that, there were no prospects. She told me that good men our age were all taken her, simply didn't want anything to do with a woman who had cheated on her devoted husband. Sure, she could get drinks bought for her. She could dance. She could spend the night in someone's bed if she wanted. She still looked stunning when she turned it on, sensual, magnetic. But the men she attracted didn't want a real connection, especially not with someone who was clearly deep into menopause and emotionally carrying around a body bag of guilt. Starting a new life, a new family, at her age with her past was next to impossible. I just sat there, listening, quietly, until she ran out of words, until her voice cracked and her eyes closed. And for the first time since she left, she finally looked tired. I poured us each another glass of wine and handed hers over with a soft smile. "Well," I said, "based on everything you've told me tonight, yeah, you were pretty damn stupid." She gave me a startled look, but I didn't let her sit in it too long. "But you don't owe me anything," I continued. "You followed your dream, and I loved you enough to let you go do that. I didn't like it, but I respected it." God, I wish I had a picture of her face in that moment. She hadn't expected that. She thought I'd be bitter, or smug, or distant. But what she got instead was the truth. I had forgiven her, almost immediately, actually. Because how could I force her to stay in a marriage she didn't want to be in anymore? I couldn't keep her tied to the house like some trapped bird in a gilded cage. And if I'd tried to control her, she would have just found a way around it anyway. Her letter may have felt like a gut punch when I first read it, but in hindsight, it saved us from a messier disaster. No fighting over money. No legal war over furniture or memories. No need for custody arrangements. Our kids were already grown and gone. For that, I was actually grateful. "So," I told her, "I'm no longer your husband, and I get that it might take a while before you call me your best friend again, or your advisor. Trust, that's still something I'm working on." She nodded, holding her breath. "But if you want to call me a friend-real, honest-to-God friend, I'm okay with that. Just, let's not say partners in crime. That still feels a little too soon." Her eyes filled instantly, and before I could say anything else, she folded into my arms. She stayed another night. And no, didn't sleep in separate rooms. We had a lot of catching up to do. It was familiar, messy, soft, somehow more intimate now that everything between us had been burned and rebuilt. For that night, we shared the roles of parents again. Not husband and wife, just two people who'd loved, lost, and found a strange peace in between. The next morning, she packed for her New Year's camping trip. The kids had invited her to Boston, and she was excited to reconnect with them again on her own terms. As for me, I had a full week of concerts lined up. New Year's is a goldmine for musicians, and I was booked solid. The beauty of it? I didn't have time to dwell. No time for overthinking, for romantic rewinds, for questioning where we stood. The spring semester kicked off right after, and my schedule only got tighter. I didn't see Clara again until April. We both attended a teachers' conference, ironically enough, and were seated next to each other in one of the breakout sessions. Afterward, we ended up grabbing lunch, just the two of us. It was casual, comfortable, easy. We chatted about Sophia's wedding in Australia and how excited everyone was. It felt like we'd actually made it to just friends. As we were finishing dessert, she looked at me with a tiny blush, then let out this breathy little chuckle and said, "Can I ask you a favor?" "Of course," I said, not missing a beat. "I've been thinking, maybe sometime this spring, you could take me for a ride, on the Harley." She couldn't quite meet my eyes when she said it. "Absolutely," I replied. "Sunday looks warm and clear. We don't play Sundays. Let's head north, find a great little spot for lunch, maybe hike a bit." She smiled like she hadn't in a long time, a real smile. And I found myself drifting into memory, her arms around my waist, her chin resting on my shoulder as we cruised down long country roads. Those rides always ended the same way, with her wrapped around me in bed, still wearing the scent of wind and leather, whispering teasing things like, "When's the next ride with something big and powerful between my legs?" And the Harley was great too. I wasn't sure I could resist her this time. I was right. We rode up to the waterfall. Somewhere along the way, her hand started wandering. We hiked up the trail, stopped at the overlook, made our way down through the woods, and ended up back at the bike, flushed and out of breath. We stopped in this sleepy little town and strolled through antique shops, something I normally hated with a passion. Except for the fact that I was spending the day with a woman who had once been my entire world. And somehow, right there in that quiet antique shop, I saw her again, not just the woman she had become, but every beautiful version of her I'd ever known. Lunch was lovely simple, light, full of laughter. On the drive home, we took a detour and stopped for dinner at a seafood tavern on the pier. Candlelight, white wine, fresh oysters, the soft lull of waves brushing against the dock, sailboats gliding by like movie extras. It was perfect. That night, I brought her home. My house. Our house. I brought her to bed. My bed. And this time, we didn't just reminisce. We made love. Soft, familiar, new. Somewhere between bodies and breath, we found a rhythm that wasn't about being married or divorced. It was about us. Just us. The next week, we went out for dinner again, caught a movie, had lunch once or twice when our schedules allowed. And yes, we made love again. It wasn't planned. It wasn't discussed. It just happened because it felt right. But through it all, we never once talked about what it meant. We never labeled anything. There was no "what are we?" or "where is this going?" The word relationship didn't even enter the atmosphere. The only thing that was certain? Sophia's wedding. It was coming up fast, and we both wanted it to be perfect. We went over guest lists, menus, flights. I didn't flinch at the costs. I happily paid every bill that came across my desk. The band had brought in solid money over the past few months with all those festivals. Plus, Clara and I had already paid off the mortgage before the divorce. No credit card debt. I was a full-time teacher at the top of the salary bracket with zero dependents. No, I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable and happy to give my daughter the wedding of her dreams. The one thing Clara and I hadn't talked about? Travel plans. But funny enough, we both separately booked rooms at the same hotel where the wedding guests would be staying. And when we compared flights, turns out we were on the same plane too. So I called her and said, "Why don't you just meet me at my place the morning of? We'll ride to the airport together." She agreed. The day of the trip, she showed up early. I barely had time to rinse my coffee mug and start the dishwasher when the car service pulled up. We loaded our bags and rode in silence, comfortable silence. At JFK, we checked in. Not a long line there. Aren't many direct flights to Sydney these days. We walked up together, and the check-in agent looked at my boarding pass, then at Clara. "Sir, you're in first class," he said. "You can use the express line." Oh, right. I'd booked a first-class ticket for the long haul, figured I deserved some legroom and a fold-flat seat for a 20-hour flight. Normally, I fly cheap, but this trip was different. I chuckled at my rookie move, nodded, and headed to the lounge. Clara joined me after security, and we sat in the plush waiting room, sipping espresso like we were seasoned travelers. Then came the offer. The gate attendant glanced at our names and asked, "Sir, would you like to upgrade the second passenger to sit beside you in first class?" She looked at me surprised, almost embarrassed. And yeah, I did it. Call me a sentimental fool. Call me weak. Say I'm pathetic for dropping real money on a woman who once shattered me. But here's the truth. There's something about flying halfway across the planet, heading to your only daughter's wedding, with the woman who helped you raise her. That makes you want to give her a seat with legroom, a seat beside you. So I handed over my card. When we boarded, I made her wait with me. She started to fidget, looking uncomfortable. "I should just go back to my seat," she said quietly, worried they'd bump her back to economy. I leaned toward her and said, "Relax. I already checked in with you on my reservation. You're fine." Her irritation melted instantly. And once we were both seated side by side in first class, and I explained my logic that I wanted her, the mother of the bride, to have some damn dignity on a 20-hour flight, their entire mood shifted. The flight was smooth. We landed in Sydney to sunshine and sea air, and the whole week felt like some kind of surreal dream. We toured the city, visited iconic places, took photos like tourists and old friends, but the real highlight, the moment everything led up to, was watching our daughter begin her own life. I can't describe how proud I felt when I stood beside Clara and said those simple but weighty words. Her mother and I do. We walked Sophia down the aisle, arm in arm, just like we had always imagined. At the reception, I stayed close to Clara. We danced, laughed, and when her brothers and I joined the wedding band to perform a surprise rendition of All-American Girl as a tribute to our daughter, the room exploded in applause. It was magic. Later that night, back at the hotel lobby, Clara, the boys, and I found a quiet corner to unwind. And then came the question. One of the boys leaned forward and said, "So, what's the deal with you two?" Clara smiled gently. "Nothing new, sweetheart. Your dad and I are still just your parents. We've moved past everything that happened. We're just enjoying the moment. That okay with you?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, it looks like something more. It kind of feels like you're getting back together." Clara sighed and looked him in the eye. "I'm not stupid. I went through something. A stupid, selfish period. I made mistakes, really big ones, and I take full responsibility for all of it." She glanced over at me. "Your dad and I have talked. We understand each other. And like we've always told you, you make a choice in life. You live with the consequences. I made mine." Then they both turned to me, waiting. I didn't say much, just smiled, took a slow sip of my local Australian ale, and shrugged. One of them pushed again. "Come on, Dad, be honest." Mom gave her answer. "Now it's your turn. Are you two getting back together?" I set my glass down. "Boys, you should be thrilled your mother, and I didn't spend this whole week bickering or making passive-aggressive comments. Most divorced couples can't even stand to be in the same room." They stayed quiet. "But if you want to know what this is," I leaned forward, my voice calm. "This is my personal life, and I reserve the right to figure it out in peace." "Dad," Ben said quietly, "you still love her. We all see it. And we're both old enough to know what it means when a woman says she just wants to be friends. We know what's hiding behind that." I nodded, exhaling through my nose. "Son, let me say this. If your mother and I are just friends, then with our history, that will always mean something more. She's the love of my life, the mother of my children, the best friend I've ever had." I looked them both in the eye. Some things can't be turned off like a light switch, but beyond that, I don't have an answer. That chapter hasn't been written yet. We talked a little more. Eventually, the boys went up to their rooms. I had just changed into my pajamas when there was a soft knock at my door. It was Clara. I opened the door and let her in without a word. We went to bed. Afterward, while I was still catching my breath, she began whispering her thanks. For the upgrade, for the entire week, for treating the wedding as something we approached as a team, for making it magical, and finally, for what I'd told the boys downstairs. I was too tired to say much, just nodded, pulled her closer, and let her rest against me. The next morning, we had breakfast in the room, and when the trip was over and we got back to my place, she paused at the door before leaving. Then she kissed me, deeply. "I want you to know," she whispered, her hand on my chest. "I'm here, for whatever you want, whenever you want. At some point, I forgot why I loved you," she said, her voice trembling. "Somewhere along the way in the chaos of bills, parenting, dishes, and daily routine, I forgot how much I loved you. Leaving you, that was the worst decision of my life. I threw away the most precious thing I've ever had. Hurting you, that's the regret that follows me everywhere, and it always will. And if I could go back, God, if I could turn back time, I would. But since I can't, just saying this now, anytime you want anything from me, just ask. You want a friend to play tennis? Call me. Need a fan in the front row when you're on stage? I'll be the one screaming your name. Need a lover? I'm yours. Want to make love to me? Yell at me? Have breakfast with me? I'm here. I'll cook for you. I'll clean. I'll fold your laundry, wash the dishes, and even the windows if you let me. And I will never, ever ask you to be exclusive, because I know I forfeited the right to ask that. But if you ever do ask, the answer is already yes. Boyfriend, girlfriend, lover, wife. Just say the word. She exhaled and touched my hand. Thank you for being so good to me, so generous. And if you ever fall for someone else, if you decide to move on, just know I'll be the one making sure she understands exactly what she has and that she'd better treat you right, or I will wait. I looked at her, really looked at her. That's very kind of you, Clara. And I meant it. I was happy, genuinely happy that we'd found our way back to something, whatever this something was, that we could laugh again, trust again. But I also knew myself. I'm just not sure I'm ready to slap a label on what this is, I said honestly. I don't know where we're heading, but I know I like where we are. Right now, toga thurvin if it's only part of the time. She nodded. She didn't look surprised. I've spent my whole life living with women first, my mom, then my sister. Then, right after college, I married you. Now, I kind of like living in a place where I control the colors, where I choose what's on the walls and what's not. I like cooking the food I love, having a fridge stocked with my favorites, not half-eaten jars of things no one finishes. I like being in the band. I like the energy of the stage. And yeah, I'll admit it, it's been nice having a bit of an open, romantic life. I'm not rushing to give that up. She was quiet, processing. Then she asked gently, "Do you remember the note you wrote me after I left?" "I do," I said. "I told you. You were right. Thank you. Goodbye." She raised an eyebrow. "You didn't even sign it with love." "I meant every word," I said. "You were right. We were burned out. We needed change." I was grateful for the clean break, as hard as it was. And any mention of love in that moment, it would have either been a lie or sounded desperate. And I wasn't going to beg. That's not who I am. She looked at me for a long time. What should I write back now? I shook my head. You don't need to write anything. You've already shown me what matters. Her voice was soft. Have I? You've shown me you care. You've shown me that you still find me attractive and, yeah, sexy. You've shown me you want me. When it comes to the kids, you've always been my partner. You've shared dinners with me, woken up next to me. You've laughed with me, danced with me. You stood next to me at our daughter's wedding. You didn't hesitate to sit with me on the plane. You respected our history enough to let me be the one to pay for everything without guilt or entitlement. And you told our sons, with your eyes and your words, that I'm still the love of your life. She blinked quickly, tears welling. The only thing left now, she whispered, is that title, that role, being your wife. And I promise you I'll never pressure you. I know I broke that bond. I know it's mine to earn, not to ask for. But if you ever ask, know that the answer is already yes. She stood up, kissed me gently, and left. And for once, I didn't overthink it. Because this part of the story, it's still being written. I'll pray every day, she said quietly at the door, for the chance to say yes. Then Clara kissed me goodnight soft, slow, full of meaning. Of course I thought about what she said. How could I not? But come on, be honest. Why stop at one woman when I had the whole damn world in the palm of my hand? I had my own home. My kids were grown and thriving. My finances were solid. My ex-wife was basically throwing herself back into my life, offering unconditional devotion with no strings attached. I had abs again, still had all my hair, still had my Harley and my guitar and a band that was heating up like we were in our 20s. And the women, they weren't just interested. They were lining up to ride on the back of my bike, to show up at barbecues, to sneak kisses after gigs, to drag me into the shadows at after-parties. Sure, I loved Clara. Always would. She was someone I could absolutely see sharing my golden years with. Someday. Maybe. When I turn 60. But not today. Not now. I didn't write Dear Mark. After all, I didn't leave. She did. So I didn't owe anyone a damn thing. I forgave her. I made peace. And I rebuilt my life. on my terms. So I picked up my phone, called the busty blonde who had first climbed onto my Harley back at that street festival, the one who'd flipped my switch back to alive. She laughed when she picked up. "Well, well," she purred. "Took you long enough. I wasn't sure if you were still serious about never taking my calls again." "Oh, I'm walking just fine now," she teased. "And I've got a bottle of wine waiting. You bringing the Harley?" Of course. Even as I slipped into my boots and grabbed my keys, I knew. Someday, I might ask Clara to marry me again. But tonight, this was not that day. Subscribe to our channel so your second chance doesn't end with a breakup letter. And stick around because the next story, it'll blow this one out of the water. And hey, if you're under 18, you're not ready for what comes next. Asterisk,